Let's see if I remember how to do this. Hello, I'm Kristin, also known as Voolenvine, here on my YouTube channel, on Instagram, on Ravelry, or pretty much everywhere else on the interwebs. And as always, I'm so happy that you're taking some time out of your day to chat about all the knitting, all the sewing, all the making, or whatever crafty rabbit hole I happen to be diving down this week. And I am back. I am back after a 2-week hiatus. That's pretty much been the longest time I've gone without recording a podcast. So let's see if I remember how to do this. And just a heads up, I do want to apologize for any ambient noise you will hear outside. We are having our stoop redone, and yeah, I feel like every time I record there's something happening. We're having our roof leak repaired, we're having our stoop repaired, and there's always something happening. Yeah, lots of home improvement stuff happening. So I do apologize in advance if that enters your earbuds at any point. But anyway, you are here for the knitting and the sewing, and I've got lots to catch you up on, given that I've taken 2 weeks off. As I mentioned, Dennis and we took a short vacation. We went to Jamaica, which was so much fun. I'll talk more about that in the blather segment, which happens at the end of the episode, where I just chat about general life stuff, should you care to stick around. But yeah, it was Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and if you celebrated, I hope you got to enjoy a nice long weekend full of making, barbecuing, travel, what have you. I just hope it was an enjoyable time. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what else before I get into the nitty-gritty. I do have some knit-alongs to mention before I talk about what I've been making this week. So we have the Box O Socks knit-along, and we have the Year of the Garment knit-along, and those are year-long make-alongs. And for more information about that, if you'd like to join, if you haven't already, hop on over to the Voolenvine Ravelry group. That's the place to be if you would like to partake in any of the chatter surrounding this channel or the podcast, ask questions, partake in our knit-alongs and make-alongs. It's just so lively, full of chatter, and lots of participants sharing their projects, their whips and photos, and every time I go in there, I'm just so completely inspired. So definitely check it out. And then we do have the Uncomfort Zone KAL, which was supposed to end June 1st. Life got in the way. I went on vacation, came back and realized, it's June 1st. I was supposed to lock the thread. Anyway, didn't get around to it. Apologies for any confusion. I am hereby extending the deadline to July 1st. So you have a whole other month to contribute or get your finished objects in there. Again, this is a super casual knit-along. All these knit-alongs and make-alongs are very casual. Any guidelines are posted in those threads, so do hop on over there if you are curious about them. But yeah, the Uncomfort Zone KAL is all about knitting, making anything that's beyond your comfort zone, be it crazy colorway combinations, a new to you technique, a pattern that you would never consider knitting before or making before, the world's your oyster, basically. Anything you just would not generally gravitate towards, that is the idea of this make-along. So hop on over there, check it out. Extending the deadline to July 1st. Then I will close the thread and choose a winner and announce it on this platform right here. So I think that is it for general announcements. So without further ado, before I get into what I've been making, just a quick word from my lovely and amazing sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design, business, tech, and more, even sewing and the fiber arts. I love learning new things when it comes to knitting, sewing, photography, or whatever crafty rabbit hole I happen to be diving down. And because I know you love learning new things too, I partnered up with Skillshare, and they are offering my viewers 2 months free to try their platform. So give Skillshare a go and learn something new. Just click on the link in the description box below, entering the code at checkout, and enjoy. And thanks, Skillshare. And welcome back. Okay, I have some whips, works in progress to share with you. I do not have any finished objects, and these are going to be projects that you are probably so tired of seeing and hearing about on the podcast. Believe you me, I'm as well. I just can't wait to have them off the needles finally. But let's talk about the one that's been sitting on my needles for way too long already, and that is my Birds of a Feather shawl by Andrea Mowry. And this thing needs to end, my friends. It needs to come off the needles. And I'm so close. I'm so close to finishing here it is in all its glory. It is almost done. I'm on the last bit of mohair, and then I have one more stripe of single ply yarn to knit through, and then I am done. I'm binding off and I am done. And I did have to rip back, so I missed a couple. My stitch count is like way off. I don't know what I did, but I have way more stitches than I should have, but it's knitting up okay. I don't think I'm gonna have a problem at the end. But I laid it out on the ground and compared it to photos on Ravelry, and it looks like it's knitting up as it should. So I think it's one of those patterns where the stitch count isn't so important, if that makes sense, just as long as the shape is working out. I don't quote me on that, but you know, we're gonna see. It's an adventure. It's an adventure, and we'll see where this happens. This podcast will end on a cliffhanger. How about them apples? I'm in rare form today, guys. I've had way too much caffeine, so yeah. I'm gonna try and slow down my pace just a little bit. Sometimes I have to catch myself and do that. Remind myself, Kristin, let's just take things a little slower. So yeah, anyway, here we have my birds of a feather shawl. And of course, this is my hand-dyed yarn in my birds. I am in my I Am No Bird colorway, a colorway inspired by one of my favorite novels of all time, Jane Eyre. And yes, so anyway, birds of a feather shawl. Lovely, lovely pattern of endless, mindless stockinette, if that's your jam. I will say, not completely my jam. I think like sometimes I do appreciate a project where it's just miles and miles of stockinette, but it does have to end at some point, and I think this was just way too long for my liking. But again, I'm probably gonna get so much wear out of this pattern come winter. It is the yarn that I'm using again is my Ghost lace base, which is mohair, silk, lace, and then I have my Nouveau base, which is 100% superwash merino single ply, and it's just like the two work so well together, and yeah, this is gonna be a favorite FO of mine, and again, cannot wait to get it off the needles. It needs to end. It needs to end. Next up, we have the Soldotna crop tee, and this is a lovely, beautiful, and amazing pattern by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. And had I followed the pattern to a T, this would be done. This would have been done light years ago, because the Soldotna crop is, as the name suggests, it's a crop. It's a crop sweater. I keep calling it a crop tee, but it's a cropped sweater with short arms, and I could have banged this thing out in like 2 weeks, but because I'm a glutton for punishment, I extended the body, so it's a little bit long. It's still kind of a cropped sweater on me, but because I have a long torso, I extended the body by maybe, I think, 5 more pattern repeats. So ideally it's supposed to end here, but I added on about like 7 more rows of this fleece stitch right here, and then started the ribbing. And now I am on Sleeve Island, and in the original pattern, the sleeve is supposed to end here, but I'm going full sleeve on this thing. So yeah, it's a labor of love, but I am so in love with this sweater, guys. This is gonna get, again, so much wear come colder weather. And I'll try and stand up so you can see. Yeah, so again, I'm going for long sleeves. And right now I'm almost at the wrist, so I think I have maybe about 5 more pattern repeats to go, and then I'm going to start the ribbing for the wrist. And yeah, then I have a whole nother sleeve to go with. And the yarn is, again, surprise, surprise, my hand-dyed yarn, Voolenvine yarns in my Smitten DK base, which is superwash merino, cashmere, and nylon DK weight. And the colorways are Revenge of the Harpsichord, which is this golden kind of mustardy speckled color. And then I'm using Grim for this black, and then Courtesan, which I can't talk, which is this peachy kind of mauve color, and then Deadly Nightshade, which is this kind of like teal speckled color here. And yeah, I just, again, loving the way these colors are playing together. I've been dyeing kits for these because you have been asking me to dye kits, and I've been dyeing kits like a mad woman. But this week I am going to be taking a break from dyeing kits, just a little one, just because I've been dyeing the same colors over and over again for the past couple of weeks, and driving me a little batty. I need to take a break and explore some new colorways and play with some other things for a little bit, if that makes sense. So thank you so much for your patience and understanding. I will have kits at some point. I just need to take a little bit of a break from them for a little bit. But anyway, yes, that is my Soldotna crop tee. Sweater. Why do I want to call it a crop tee? I have no idea. But anyway, trying to think what else I need to say about this other than I love it and it's too hot to be knitting on this, but you know, the things we do for the love of knitting. Next up on the needles is a new cast on. I know. I'm trying to get some stuff off the needles. But I went away on vacation and I was going to bring my birds of a feather shawl with me, but then I'm thinking beach, sunblock, sand, mohair, probably not a good combination. So I made an executive decision and decided to leave the birds of a feather at home and cast on something a little bit more beach friendly. And I didn't want to bring anything that would require a lot of yarn to bring with because I wanted to pack light. So, you know, I gave myself permission to cast on something completely new, something that's been sitting in that I've been wanting to cast on for a while. And now I have yarn stuck in the zipper of my project bag. So I cast on the Odyssey shawl by Locatelli. And here is where I am with it. This is actually a free pattern that she recently released. Super generous of Hohi, and you know, just as a thank you to everybody for purchasing her patterns in the past and just being so supportive. And I thought that was just such a really cool thing. And yeah, it's a beautiful pattern to boot as well. So definitely recommend it. It's super intuitive. Again, pure garter stitch back and forth, back and forth. It's a crescent shaped shawl and requires three colorways. And she knit hers actually in DK weight, but I chose to knit mine in fingering. And I think this is going to stretch out quite a bit once it's all blocked, said and done. But it has this really cool, again, it's just miles and miles of stockinette, but then it has this really cool kind of like lace detail. So it definitely gives you a break from the monotony of miles and miles of garter stitch, you know, just to break it up a little bit with a little bit of interest, if that makes sense. So I did go stash diving, and this is yarn that I purchased from the Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year. This is Countess Ablaze. So I'm blanking on what colorway this is. I think I threw out the tag, but this one is called The Unwanted, and this one is going to be the third color. So it is kind of it's not an exact fade, but it is kind of a really neat gradient. This is Brave New World on her Lady Persephone sock yarn. It's 75% blue face luster and 25% nylon. So I thought this was the perfect type of yarn to take on the beach. It's not sticky at all. It's, you know, just a very basic, simple fingering weight yarn. And yeah, very, very beach knitting friendly. So yeah, that is my Odyssey shawl, and I don't know, it happened by accident, but I'm kind of thinking it was a match made in heaven because you have the Odyssey shawl, and then this is Countess Ablaze's Lady Persephone sock yarn. So I thought there was kind of like a Greek mythology theme happening there. So I thought that was really neat. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, as I mentioned, I actually used a fingering weight as opposed to the called for DK weight. So I did go down a needle size. So yeah, I think the pattern calls for a US size 8 or 7, but I went down to a 6, a 4mm needle. And yeah, as I mentioned, it looks really small here, but once it's blocked out, I think it's gonna block out a lot. So it is gonna be kind of like a schlankety schlanket, if that makes sense. And I did get a few questions about tips for knitting on the beach. So yeah, I would be happy to divulge my tips. I don't know if I'm the expert on the subject, but from experience, I will give you some tips for knitting on the beach. Number one, I would say pack a small project. You don't want to be wrangling or managing too many balls of yarn while you're sitting on a beach chair. Just, you know, I've tried it. It's not easy. Also, I tend to pack some, I always call them booty wipes, but they're really just wet wipes. I won't call them booty wipes. I guess because people use them on babies' butts, but you know, I always keep a pack of wet wipes with me, even if they are meant for babies, just because they're easy to, you know, like clean your hands or anything, you know. I hate, again, I'm not generally not a beach person. I hate being covered in sand and feeling sticky with sunblock and everything. So I always keep some wet wipes with me, and after I'm done applying sunblock, I use the wet wipes to clean my hands. Of course, you can just use water, take a spray bottle of water with you, or just a bottle of water and just, rinse your hands off and dry them off. You want your hands to be as dry and as sticky free as possible when knitting with yarn on the beach. You could use, if you're in a bind, you could use the beach water, but still, I would say like the salt water kind of leaves like a sticky residue on your hands. So I would say stick to water or wet wipes if you are going to be knitting on the beach and need to clean your hands. And I would also say bring a project bag. You don't want your projects to be rolling around in your beach bag, potentially exposed to any sunblock that might leak out of the bottles, or just kind of get tangled up in beach stuff, your sunglasses and anything. So in general, I mean, you should probably bring a project bag anywhere you go with your knitting. Just, it makes sense. But yeah, there's that. And then I would also say leave the mohair at home, because again, you're sitting in on a beach, it's hot, it's fluffy, it sheds, and you don't want to be managing mohair. I would stick to, either merino, blue face luster, BFL, superwash yarns are fine. Just something that's not as, floofy or hairy, something that's, again, like I don't enjoy, me personally, I don't enjoy knitting with cottons or linens. So, but those are great options for knitting on the beach as well. And I'm trying to think what else. I think that's it as far as my tips for knitting on the beach. So, I hope that answers some questions and helps a little bit. But I guess that is it. Those are my works in progress, and hopefully I'll have something finished to share with you next week. All right, let's talk sewing, because I do have an elephant sitting in the room. I'm actually wearing it, and then something happening on Margot the mannequin back there. Yeah, well, first I should talk about my corset, because you're probably wondering, did I finish it? Did I not finish it? I did not finish my corset yet. It is kind of on the back burner for now. Don't worry, I will be finishing it, but I wanted to take a break so I could kind of build up a capsule summer wardrobe, if that makes sense. So that is taking a little time out at the moment, but you will be hearing about it very soon, because I do want that finished. All I have to do is sew on the binding and put in the bones and everything, and it will be done. But yes, I am wearing a new make. This is the Trina dress, a pattern by Victory Patterns, and I will pop a photo of it in the sidebar so you can see what it looks like in all its glory, because I did not get around to taking photos of the FO yet. And I as soon as I saw this dress, I had to stop everything, purchase it, print it out, put it together. It was just one of those things where I need this in my wardrobe immediately. Unfortunately, I didn't have the fabric that I wanted to use for it in my stash. So what I did was I ordered it and then went stash diving and picked out this chiffon fabric that has been sitting in my stash for a while and decided to go with that, even though I'm not 100% in love with it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But let me stand up so you can see. So yeah, this is a wrap dress, and because it's such a busy pattern, again, it's a busy pattern, and most of the main detail of this pattern kind of gets lost in the pattern. But yes, it is a wrap dress. It has, I'm gonna try and see if I can go over here, but it has some gathers. It has a raglan shaping here, and then some subtle gathers over here. And then it also has, what I love most about this are kimono inspired sleeves. So yeah, it's very, I love this so much. And I'm trying to stand back so you can see what it looks like. So yeah, it's very, lots of ease, very relaxed. And I absolutely love the shape of this dress, you guys. It is everything that I need in my wardrobe right now. I want to make 10 of these. Again, as I mentioned, the fabric is very busy. It's not my first choice of what I would go with, even though it's black and it has mauve flowers all over it. I just feel like I'm drowning in flowers. Where's Kristin? So here I am. Yeah, it's again, it's beautiful fabric. It fits well, but yeah, because it's such a it's a dress with a lot of positive ease to it. Well, it is fitted in certain areas, but there's a lot happening, and I feel like the pattern, the lines of the dress itself are getting lost in the flower pattern. So I would liken it to knitting an intricate lace shawl with heavily variegated yarn, if that makes sense to you. Because if you knit a lace shawl with yarn that's heavily speckled, lots of colors going on, that lace pattern is gonna get totally lost in that colorway. So which is why generally you want to, not that it's, you shouldn't, if you want to, go by all means, but generally that's the effect that heavily variegated yarns have on intricate lace, on shawls with or any pattern with an intricate lace design, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's what's happening here in the sewing, in the land of sewing. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. So the fabric that I did intend to sew this with came in the mail, and that is what's happening on Margot right now. So it's the same pattern, the Trina dress by Victory Patterns. I'm still working on it. I started it over the weekend and I didn't get to finish it. But it is kind of like I want to say like a tie-dye. It's a challis fabric, but it's like this black/gray tie-dye fabric, and I'm trying to see. You're not going to be able to see much of anything, but yeah, it's just a very charcoal gray challis fabric that I'm using. So it has a lot of drape. It's lightweight. This is crepe fabric, so I think there's a little bit of polyester in here, and definitely not great for summer because I feel I am definitely sweating a lot of bullets right now. It's in the high 80s, I want to say, today, right now, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, and this isn't very summer friendly. I think this is more going to be just kind of like a robe I wear around the house. Yeah, so anyway, but very excited to finally have that dress done. So I will, of course, post photos once it is done. And I'm trying to think what else I want to say about it. It's a very, very, very involved pattern, I will say. This took me about 2 days to do. I did take a vacation before I went away when Dennis and I went on vacation. I did take 2 days off to just sew and make things, and this was that project. It's something I was hoping to bring with me on vacation, but it did not suit my style at all, so it stayed home. But yeah, this took about 2 days, and I would say, if you are an adventurous beginner, you can totally do it. I would definitely choose, as the pattern suggests, fabric with more stability. This was pretty stable. The challis fabric is slippery, and a new to me technique that I tried out with that for cutting out fabric helped so much. I actually used tissue paper. I laid down tissue paper on my floor, and it stabilized the fabric as I cut it out. It prevented it from getting all wishy-washy. Without it, it would just be all over the place and the pieces would come out all wonky. So highly recommend tissue paper as just kind of like a baseline if you're on a budget. I know there are other materials like corkboard you can use to pin down fabric pieces when cutting them out. But if you are on a budget and don't have all the resources, tissue paper is definitely a great way to go. And weights. Even if you don't have designated fabric weights, you can use candles, I used my camera lenses, you can use books. I've heard people using mugs, so definitely look into that. Lots of props around to help you out with sewing that aren't meant for sewing. So yeah, this is my most recent make. I do have a couple of other projects that are bumping around in my head, but oh yes. My sewing blog. I keep forgetting to mention my sewing blog. I did start a dedicated sewing blog, so it's there if you want to check it out. I will pop a link. I didn't buy the domain yet, but I am working on that. But I'm calling it The Peculiar Stitch, just because. So yeah, it's just my little sewing blog where I talk about all my makes, post photos, and all the details that went into making the garment. So if you are thinking about making the same garment, it's a place you can go to check out what alterations I made, what all those little details or queries that you might have. So check it out, and again, I'm not. It's just for fun. It's not something I'm monetizing or what have you. I'm just having fun with it. It's just a place that I'm cataloging all of my sewing projects and the like. So hop on over there if you are interested. Yeah, and I'm trying to think what else. Sewing wise, oh yes, the other sewing FO that I have is something that I started 2 years ago. Let me go get it. And I apologize because this is completely covered in cat hair. This is something that I actually did make specifically for Bella, my cat, and she's been loving the hell out of it, but I finished a quilt. I finished the quilt, you guys. It is done. This was part of Jacqueline Salem of Brooklyn Knitfolk. She hosted a quilt along, and she has a complete YouTube video tutorial series on her YouTube channel. I'll link to it in the show notes below. But she takes you step by step on how to make a quilt from start to finish, giving you tips, tricks, and everything. And I followed it, and I now have a handmade quilt that I'm super proud of, and even more so because my cat loves it to death. Yeah, so all that was left to do was for me to stitch in the ditch, which is when you're stitching in the ditch, you basically stitch in between two pieces that have already been sewn together, so it tacks down on the back side. So this is just an old bed sheet that I had that I used as backing. You know, they have like muslin fabric that you can use as backing for quilts. But yeah, I just used the back of an old bed sheet that we weren't using anymore, and yeah, it worked out really well. And I'm trying to think what else. I did purchase a foot for my sewing machine that is specifically designed to stitch in the ditch because for some reason I wasn't getting in that ditch. I was kind of, you know, going all drunken spider on the ditch, if that makes sense. So again, I'll post a link to that as well if you are interested in, you know, getting your mitts on one of those. But it helped out so much. It just has like a blade that goes down the center of the stitching ditch, and all you have to do is keep your eye on that blade as you're sewing, and your line will be completely straight. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I'll stand back so you can see it. And this was just a little kit that I got, a little charm kit that I purchased from Amazon a while back. And you know, I didn't want anything too crazy, so I went black and white and gray. And for the binding, it's kind of like, it's pre-made binding, like 1-inch binding that I purchased again from Amazon. It's kind of like this really soft felt material. Yeah, and I just had fun hand stitching it. You know, like when all was said and done, when it came to finishing it, all I had to do was, again, stitch in the ditch and sew on the binding. That only took me about 2 hours because it is a small quilt. This is considered a, you know, baby quilt that you just put on the floor and, you know, what have you. It's just a simple, quickie project. But yeah, Bella, I'm putting it back on the floor, but Bella has claimed it as her own. She sits on it. Whenever I'm in my craft room here working, she's just hanging out on it, rolling around on it, playing on it, scrunching it up, and yeah, it's so adorable. I've been posting photos on Instagram stories, so if you want to see some of that fun, I created a little highlight called Bella, so you know, go on over there and you can see her hopping around on the quilt. It's quite cute. So yeah, that is it for sewing, my friends. I am going to move along to the blather segment where I chat about what's been happening in my life. Should you care to stick around? Otherwise, I do just want to give you guys a heads up about my shop update. I will be having one tomorrow, Friday, June 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern time, so definitely check it out if the spirit moves you. And as I mention every week, if you'd like to be looped in about what colorways and bases will be in each update, you can feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I send one out every week, usually every Thursday, letting you know exactly what to expect in each update. So definitely hop on over there and check it out. I'm trying to think what else. I think that is it. So, all right, life stuff. As I mentioned, Dennis and I went to Jamaica. We've never been before, but it was kind of like a last-minute spontaneous vacation getaway that we booked because, yeah, we did just get back from France. I just got back from France and Edinburgh, but it was one of those vacations where you kind of need a vacation from vacation. We were kind of desperate for a little beach getaway, someplace warm, and, you know, Jamaica popped up on the map, and we were like, you know what? Sold. So we did do that. The only caveat was that we booked it through Expedia, and somehow Expedia thought it was a great idea to fly us into Kingston when our hotel was all the way on the other side of the island. So we underestimated the actual size of the island, and it turns out that we flew in to the airport at, I want to say like 1 o'clock in the morning. We did not realize that it was a 2.5-hour car ride from the airport to the hotel. We were not pleased to hear that, but thankfully we did find a willing driver, a taxi driver, to take us to the hotel, but he took the long way, I think because he wanted to avoid tolls and whatnot, so we ended up taking this super long and windy drive through. It was a long drive. I think I fell asleep. I nodded off occasionally in the car, and then I woke up and we're just like in this really dark, kind of windy highway. And yeah, there are like two main roads that you need to take to get across the island. There's the China Road, which is a recent, I think they built it like 6 years ago. The Chinese came in and they were commissioned to build this highway, more efficient, effective highway to take you across the island. But before that, there was this, long and windy snake type road that took you between the mountains and everything, and it was a little scary. And we also crossed a haunted bridge, according to our driver. Yeah, so there was that, and he's like, if there's ever a breakdown on the road, you have, like, traffic is, forget about it. You're just stuck there until help comes. And yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to hear at that time of night. So yeah, and then at one point he started singing karaoke, and yeah, it was very surreal, very, very surreal. But we made it to the hotel. And we proceeded to have a very, very nice, relaxing vacation. So, it rained a little bit, but it burned off so quickly. And, we got to swim with fish. We got to eat really, really good food. I now have a new food obsession with goat curry and this wonderful thing called dashin, which is kind of like a potato root plant. And the way that they cook it, it looks super weird when you see it, but it's like this... It's a root. It's a root plant that you boil, and it just has this really cool consistency to it. I can't explain it, but I believe it's also called taro root. And thankfully, I realized our grocery store has it. So I've been buying it and trying to replicate the dashin that they made in Jamaica, and oh, it's so good. I'll pop a link to a recipe down below if I find one, but yeah, it's actually supposed to be really healthy for you too. So anyway, yay, new recipes. Yeah, I've actually been trying to replicate some of the stuff we've been eating there. It's so good. But yeah, I think we were there for about 3 full days, which I think was enough because I start to go a little stir crazy when I'm just sitting on my butt and not doing anything, not being productive, not moving at all. So I think that was like the perfect length of time for us. And thankfully on the way back, we had a driver that took us down the main road, the China Road highway, back to the airport. So it was a lot quicker. I think it was less than a 2-hour drive. So go figure. Anyway, very, very awesome vacation. Highly recommend Jamaica if you have not been. We loved it and would definitely love to go back. Yeah, so, and I did post some stories on Instagram if you would like to see them as well. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what else. One other fun fact. I took the plunge and did the Ancestry DNA test. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they have like all these, ancestry or they have all these like heritage websites where you can go and track your family, your family tree and everything. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but there's not too much I know about my family history. Fun fact, I never met my biological father. So, it's fine, whatever. My parents got divorced when I was very young and my mom got custody, so I never met him. And, so I've just been, on my mother's side, they've been I know my grandmother's from Germany. However, they've been very vague about, their history. They don't remember too much about it. I don't know, whatever. So I don't really know too much about my family history. So I bit the bullet and did the Ancestry.com DNA test. Not sponsored, just a fan, a willing participant. So they send you a kit and you spit into the tube, mail it out, and then 6 weeks later they let you know all your information about where you show up, where your DNA shows up in the world, who you're possibly related to. And I actually got the results today, so I fell down quite the rabbit hole this morning, did not get any work done, and here I am recording at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. But yeah, it turns out, so the results, I will say, I'm not surprised, but at the same time I am pleasantly surprised. So, turns out I am 48% European Jewish, That makes total sense because my biological father is Jewish, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, I have to do more diving, but there is some Jewish heritage on my grandmother's side. And then there's 25% Ireland and Scotland, and then 21% England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe. And then only 2% Germanic Europe, 2% Eastern Europe and Russia, 1% Greece and the Balkans, and 1% Swedish. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Anyway, if you're not familiar, they send you like a little rundown, a little graph, and some blobs along, you know, on the map, like where you show up, where your, you know, DNA shows up, and then they connect you to people that are possible DNA matches that could be in your family. And yeah, this has just opened up a whole can of worms for me that I'm gonna dive down and kind of do a little digging. But I did also sign up for a month thing so I can, you know, view family trees and everything. And apparently there is one person on Ancestry.com that has actually been actively putting together a whole family tree for my grandmother's side, and my mind has just been completely blown. So I've been finding photos. I found my uncle, my grandmother's brother. I found a photo of my great grandmother when she was really like little. I still don't know which child it is, but there's a photo of my great-great-grandmother surrounded by like 7 kids. They all look, I'll try and pop a photo of it here, but they all look very thrilled, incredibly thrilled to be taking that photo. But one of those is my great-grandmother, the one where I get the knitting from. So I am super stoked about that. I don't know, you can probably just imagine how like, just excited I am about it, to dive down that rabbit hole. But anyway, I thought I'd share that little tidbit with you. Yeah, so anyway, yay! I'm trying to think. I'm sure I'll talk about it more on future podcasts because it's like right now I'm just trying to wrap my brain around all of this. Yeah, so anyway, highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Like, you know, just if you're unsure about like where around the world, you know, you kind of originate from, or, you know, what have you, I don't know. It's really cool. So highly recommend it if you've been thinking about doing that. And I think that's it. We don't have anything planned for this weekend other than sitting around. I think I'm just going to be working on this babe right here. And on a final note, I should say that it was our 8th anniversary yesterday. Dennis and I celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary, although we have known each other, I want to say, for 13 years now, which is crazy sauce. But yeah, we had a really nice time out last night. I met him for dinner. We went to this really good restaurant in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and then had a nightcap at another restaurant that we really like, and then headed home, and it was just a really nice time. I think we're probably gonna go out again on Friday, just, you know, keep the party going. But yeah, thank you. I posted about it on Instagram yesterday, so thank you so much to everybody for all your anniversary wishes. You know, that's always fun to get. So yeah, yay, anniversary. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I think that is it for this week, guys. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I publish a new episode generally every Friday, so if you did enjoy the episode, feel free to like and subscribe below. And yeah, happy knitting, happy making, and I will see you next time. Bye!